Wednesday, August 12. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis. We will build back stronger. That was the message from Prime Minister Andrew Holness as he announced general elections for September 3. Our reporter Marlon Samuels was in the House of Representatives when the announcement was made and filed this report.
Anticipation had been building for days. The word on the streets is that elections would be called on Tuesday. When the Prime Minister arrived in Parliament on Tuesday, clad in his pair of green desert clerks, the deal was sealed. Addressing the House, he made a case for his administration to seek a second term from the Jamaican people.
Mr. Speaker, this government abolished the minimum business tax put on by that government. This government abolished the asset tax put on by that government. We abolished the ad valorem stamp duty on real estate and financial transactions. We slashed transfer tax on real estate transactions. We increased the GCT threshold for small businesses from 3 million to 10 million. I have no doubt in my mind that Jamaica will recover stronger. I have no doubt in my mind that we will build back stronger. I have no doubt in my mind that under this administration, in partnership with the people of Jamaica, in unity and continuity, we will achieve the prosperity in the new Jamaica that we all want to see. With that in mind, Mr. Speaker, I have advised the Governor General in accordance with Section 64(5) of the Constitution to dissolve Parliament on Thursday, August 13, 2020. Acting on my advice, the Governor General is expected to take the necessary steps required by Section 64(1) of the Constitution to dissolve the Parliament by proclamation. I now further advise, in exercise of the powers conferred upon me by Section 21(1) of the Representation of the People Act, the following notice is hereby given. 1. This notice may be cited as the Representation of the People Act, Appointment of Nomination Day, Notice 2020. And 2, Tuesday, the 18th day of August 2020 is appointed as Nomination Day. This notice has been gazetted today, Tuesday, the 11th day of August 2020. Consequently, the date fixed for the taking of the polls, that is the general elections for the year 2020, is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020.
Normally, election announcements are made at large party gatherings and with much fanfare. But in today's new normal, thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Prime Minister chose Parliament to make the announcement.
I have decided to announce the elections here in Parliament because it is important that this House, which is the People's House, though divided by an aisle, is not a house of disunity. And in a time of crisis, unity must prevail. So, Mr. Speaker, I am coming to the House asking that we are united as a country. We go to elections, but we must always bear in mind now, united to fight the pandemic.
In paving the way for the elections, members of the House united to vote in favor of ending the state of emergencies and zones of special operations, that are now across the island. The revocation of these measures will go to the Senate this Wednesday to be ratified. After that, the Parliament will be dissolved and the power will be placed in the hands of the people to determine who will govern them for the next 5 years. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Marlon Samuels.
16 new COVID-19 cases have been confirmed in the last 24 hours, bringing Jamaica's total number of confirmed cases to 1,047. The Minister of Health and Wellness says the country also recorded 8 more recoveries, bringing that total number to 753. The minister says the new cases brings to 219 the number of active cases in the island, with 4 of those being moderately ill. 9 of the new cases are male and 7 are female, with ages ranging from 19 to 84. 4 of the new cases are of addresses in St. James, 3 of which are imported, having arrived in the island on a flight from the Dominican Republic. 2 of the new cases reside in Clarendon, 3 are from St. Catherine, and 7 Kingston and St. Andrew. The government is moving to close 17 beaches and 19 rivers amid concerns about COVID-19 restriction breaches. The move is just one of several measures announced in Parliament on Tuesday by Minister of Local Government and Community Development Desmond McKenzie.
The Local Government and Community Development Minister says the level of indiscipline at beaches and rivers forced the temporary closure of these entertainment venues.
We will be closing the following beaches: in Kingston and St. Andrew, Bob Marley, St. Catherine Elsha, Clarendon, Farquharson Beach, Manchester, Alligator Pond, St. Elizabeth, Great Bay Beach, Westmoreland, Bluefields Beach, Norman Manley Beach, Trelawney, Burwood, Jacob Taylor, Half Moon Bay, Victoria Charlotte Beach in Trelawney, St. Ann, Ocherous Beach, Turtle Tower Beach, Fantasy Beach, Cardiff Hall Beach, Flavor Beach, in Portland, Winifred Beach, Frenchman's Cove, and Boston Beach. Rivers, Mr. Speaker, again, is of real concern, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, Minister McKenzie says following a meeting with members of the entertainment sector, safety measures have been adjusted in order for the sector to remain open. He says as of August 24, small outdoor events like parties, round robins and launches with permits will be allowed to operate on specific days.
And the days are Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Applications for permits must be made to the municipal corporation at least 15 days before the date of the event. A committee will be established at each municipal corporation to receive and review all applications. This committee will consist of members of the municipal corporation, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker, because it is important that in the protocols, the health component of this is observed. You can't have our policemen Monday to Monday monitoring parties and monitoring rivers and beaches. So it is a strain on the security forces, and that is why we have agreed on a 4-day holding of parties starting from the 24th.
Minister McKenzie says permits must be displayed at the venue and safety protocols should be a part of party promotions.
So the public knows that you must come prepared to get sanitized, wear your mask. This is a part of an effort to keep the business open, Mr. Speaker. The question of the observing the protocols of the social distancing and the temperature check, Mr. Speaker, is a part of the agreement with the sector.
Changes will also be made to the number of persons allowed to attend events.
Previously, we had agreed on a number of 280, which 250 would be persons coming to enjoy themselves, and the other 30 would be persons selling in the bar and the musicians. Arising out of discussions with the sector, we have agreed to reduce this number down to 230, which will have 200 patrons and 30 being performers and members of staff for the events that are taking place. One of the agreements coming out of the meeting is that there should be a public service announcement every 15 minutes. The DJ will use his microphone to remind the audience about the protocols, wearing of the mask, observing, and reminding persons that at all times you must wear your mask. If you're eating or you're drinking, then we understand. But it is important, Mr. Speaker, based on what we have seen so far, that these measures be observed.
The local government minister says members of the entertainment and other economic sectors have proposed stricter punishments for non-compliance, including banning events and closure of venues. At the same time, he encouraged Jamaicans to ensure that they comply with the rules. Simone Absalom reporting for the news on PBCJ.
With the school term slated to begin in September, the government will be allocating $1 billion in back-to-school assistance to just over 200,000 children who are on the Program of Advancement through Health and Education PATH. Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark gave the breakdown in the House of Representatives on Tuesday.
The COVID allocation of resources to employees program has been expanded to provide a back-to-school component to children within the PATH and poor relief programs. It should be noted that the government has, over the last 2 years, provided back-to-school grant to PATH students, and for this fiscal year, that grant was programmed at $3,500 per student. Because of the COVID pandemic, Mr. Speaker, the government for this fiscal year will provide an overall back-to-school grant of $8,500 per student at the primary and secondary level who are within the PATH or the poor relief programs to assist with procurement of school supplies as the new academic year commences.
Parliamentarians were also urged to use their Constituency Development Funds, or CDF allocations, to assist constituents with back-to-school needs. Opposition Education spokesman Peter Bunting called on the government to do more.
I would expect, and the opposition is calling for, the government to examine a special COVID allocation to recognize the challenges that parents are facing. An allocation of at least $10,000 per student.
What we have been having is that members have needed to expend more on education this year, and so we're saying, to the extent that you need to, the limit will be removed, and later on, if there is a need to move the cap, we can do so. But moving the cap at this point in time, you can understand, right? It's just not, and I hope you can work with, on this. Moving the cap at this point in time, Leader of Opposition, is not something that is the optics of it, right?
On Tuesday, August 11, the Justice Ministry and the United Kingdom's Department for International Development, DFID, signed a memorandum of understanding for the continuation of the Unification of Prosecutorial Services project in Jamaica. It is designed to help modernize Jamaica's justice sector by building the capacity of select institutions to improve accountability and transparency.
The MOU, which will run until March 31, 2023, is intended to effectively root out organized crime and strengthen Jamaicans' anti-corruption framework.
In Jamaica, organized crime and corruption are matters that need urgent attention, and it is important that we address them. It is an open secret, indeed, that corruption erodes the moral fiber of our society. I believe that all well-thinking Jamaicans will agree with that remark. I can say that from where I sit, the Andrew Holness-led administration in no way, shape, or form condone corruption in any quarter, whether it is the so-called big fish or small fry. Those of you who have listened carefully to my public utterances will note that I constantly beseech the justices of the peace and other stakeholders in the justice system to do the right thing, to stand up against corruption, to be the vanguard of integrity, to resist all temptations to accept or give bribes, to act steadfastly in the interests of the Jamaican people.
Funded by Serious Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Program, the agreement is valued at £1 million.
But if you want proof that this effort is paying off, just look no further than the case that is being conducted successfully in Manchester Municipal Corporation, when a massive fraud of $400 million was unearthed, and the wheels of justice have been seen to work right to the end. And the speed at which it worked is a credit to everybody who was involved, and is proof to us that our partnership is working. And this is, as I said, part of a holistic approach and our total commitment, and you can measure it in many different ways, but I can put a figure on it, of just over £17 million worth of investment in MOCA, in Indicom, in FID, and all of the other agencies. And this will continue.
This is the second such MOU to be signed. The first, valued at $51 million, was signed in March 2019. It provided for a review of the governance of the clerks of courts with a view to placing them under the supervision of the Director of Public Prosecutions, DPP's office.
Without a doubt, the building of capacity is an ongoing process. Prosecutors come and they go. I would say 95% of them are always committed to the system. But in order for them to continue to operate at the highest level, you have to continue to build capacity at every level. The commitment is there, both at the lower level in the parish courts and certainly at the office of the DPP, but you cannot beat ongoing training. And certainly, in fact, as I speak at my office now, in terms of doing our own thing, we're having a series of a webinar with different subjects that allows us to continue our legal education.
For the news on PBCJ, I'm Jada Walker.
Chairman of the Westmoreland-based Misty Blue Cancer Care Foundation, Dorothy Satchwell, has called for the establishment of more cancer-related charities in Jamaica in order to increase awareness and assist people affected by the disease.
There is no one country in the world, regardless of their GDP, that can say cancer is something that they can readily address, because the money is not there. It is so expensive. So when you have a country like America that has 228 charitable organizations specifically for cancer, England has 78, I think Canada has 34. 55 years now we have had Jamaica Cancer Society. In more recent years we have had Misty Blue, and I think you have Janet Kalu in St. Elizabeth, and other ones are popping up. But there is the need for it.
She was speaking at a recent Jamaica Information Service think tank at the agency's regional office in Montego Bay, St. James. Ms. Satchwell, who is a breast cancer survivor, recalled assistance given to her by a charity in England during her treatment.
One of the things that I noticed Jamaicans have not embraced, really, it's charitable work. When I did my radiotherapy in England, I had 5 minutes away from my house was a hospital where I get my major treatment. But in terms of my radiotherapy, it was 25 miles away. And I had a charitable organization, Monday to Friday for my radiotherapy. They'd come to my house, lift me off my bed because I was that weak anyhow, take me for my radiotherapy and take me back home. And they did that for the entire time of my radiotherapy. And that never cost me a penny. That was voluntary work. And the challenge that we have is trying to get our people to get that mindset.
According to the World Health Organization, WHO, cancer is a leading cause of death worldwide, accounting for an estimated 9.6 million deaths in 2018. Members of the Rastafarian community are calling for a clear directive from the Education Ministry on rules affecting children with locks and other natural hairstyles. Several Rastafarians on Tuesday morning demonstrated in front of the Ministry of Education to protest the recent Supreme Court ruling involving the Kensington Primary School student who has sister locks. The protesters call for clear directive to schools to prevent discriminatory rules against children with locks and other natural hairstyles. Minister of Education Carl Samuda addressed the protesters and gave them the assurance that their concerns will be addressed. Last month, the Supreme Court ruled that the child's constitutional rights were not breached by Kensington Primary based on the case presented. The Companies Office of Jamaica is urging customers to take advantage of its COVID-19 compliance relief initiative to assist entities in being officially removed from the companies and business names registers.
In a release, the COJ explains that the initiative will accommodate entities that have ceased or will cease operations up to August 31, 2020. Documents must be submitted by August 31. For companies and businesses wishing to close, the COJ will facilitate that by foregoing the usual document submissions and late fees. Companies that wish to be removed from the register will be required to submit a letter requesting removal. The company will not be required to bring the company up to date for them to be removed. For business names closures, the fee will be $600, and in cases where a business has multiple outstanding renewals, the COJ will only require payment for one renewal period. If there are no outstanding periods, only the closure fee will be applicable. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
Time now for the business report with Gabrielle Thompson.
In Tuesday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index declined by 1,945 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 80 stocks, of which 32 advanced, 41 declined, and 7 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 5 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, 138 Student Living Variable Preference, and 1834 Investments Limited. Stocks declined for Blue Power Group, Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, and Caribbean Cream Limited. Trading firm were Siboney Group, Grace Kennedy Limited, and Jamaican Teas Limited. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 6.6 million units, followed by Mailpack Group Limited with 4.3 million units and Lasco Financial Services Limited with 3.4 million units. Now for the foreign exchange. The US dollar on Tuesday, August 12 ended trading at $149.77. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $113.20. The pound sterling traded for $195.53, and the euro ended trading at $179.66. Oil prices rose on Wednesday after an industry report showed U.S. crude inventories last week fell more than analysts had expected, bolstering hopes that fuel demand in the world's biggest economy can weather the coronavirus pandemic. Brent crude futures gained 67 cents to $45.17 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 65 cents to $42.26 a barrel. That's it for the Business Report on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson.
This week on Living Healthy, we explore the impact of COVID-19 on medical care for persons living with non-communicable diseases and bring you up to date on the latest vaccine being developed to combat the virus.
Every day, over 100,000 people contract the novel coronavirus. That data from the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO. The PAHO says some countries are seeing a second wave of infections threatening to cripple developing economies. However, PAHO's director, Dr. Carissa Etienne, says there's another threat: controlling other communicable and non-communicable diseases.
The pandemic is also disrupting our ability to control transmission of other infectious diseases, many of which we have been fighting to eliminate for decades. The Americas has always been at the forefront of the elimination of infectious diseases. Indeed, preventing and treating these diseases was the impetus for creating the Pan American Health Organization nearly 120 years ago. We know that in some countries, infectious diseases such as dengue and malaria place a huge burden on health services. And along with many neglected tropical diseases, they have a disproportionate impact on poor and vulnerable populations, including our indigenous communities, much like COVID-19. In October last year, PAHO's member states committed to a region-wide approach for the elimination of more than 30 communicable diseases and related conditions in the Americas by 2030.
Dr. Etienne says the progress of achieving these goals have been disrupted. As countries focus their resources on stemming the spread of COVID-19, essential services and public education campaigns have suffered,
including priority disease control programs, elimination initiatives, and routine immunization. Services for common conditions like TB, HIV, and hepatitis are being affected. Over 80% of the countries in Latin America and the Caribbean are reporting challenges in the delivery of TB tuberculosis treatment. If patients skip doses or interrupt their treatment, a manageable condition can quickly turn into an active infection that threatens not only the patient, but also their family and close acquaintances.
The PAHO boss was speaking at a recent press briefing. One thing that will help stem the spread of COVID-19 is an effective, affordable vaccine. Assistant Director of PAHO, Dr. Jabas Barbosa, says the World Health Organization, WHO, is sourcing information from regulatory authorities in Russia regarding the country's development of a coronavirus vaccine, which was announced on Tuesday, August 11. The Russian administration announced that the country has become the first to approve a vaccine, Sputnik K, designed to offer sustainable immunity against COVID-19.
And only after analyzing all of the information, making it possible for WHO to make a recommendation for a vaccine to be recommended by WHO, and for this to be procured or purchased through the revolving fund on vaccines of PAHO, that vaccine must be pre-qualified by WHO. And in order to pre-qualify, they have to undergo this entire review on how safe it is and the quality of the vaccine. And the same thing You have to follow processes by the health authority in the country in order to have a quicker assessment, but with a full guarantee that it is safe, secure, effective, and efficient for any vaccine that will be used. So only after this review, after having access in a transparent way to all the data, to all the information, that is when the WHO will take a position, and then WHO will be able to give us an assessment of this and any other vaccine. The process is exactly the same. Thank you.
Dr. Barrosa says there is a process of pre-qualification for any vaccine.
In principle, a vaccine or the manufacturer of the vaccine must undergo clinical trials at phase 1, 2, and 3. And this is standardized all over the world. And you cannot use a vaccine or drugs or medicines without following through all these stages, having complied with all these stages. So after completing the phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials, the manufacturer requests the authorization from the regulatory authority in that country, as well as in other countries where they want to market the vaccine. The regulatory authority analyzes the record, the registration of the vaccine, assesses the quality of the manufacturer until they go through all the data, reviewing the data of all clinical trials. This is a guarantee that assures us that this is an effective, efficient, and safe vaccine.
Remember, vaccines can help the immune system develop protection from a disease.
In regional news, the People's National Movement has been given a new mandate for the next 5 years. The party secured a 22 to 19 seat victory over the United National Congress in the Trinidad and Tobago 2020 general election. We have more in this report from TTT News Online.
Even as the leader of the PNM and Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley celebrated his party's victory, albeit with a reduced majority, he said hard times are ahead.
Tonight, against all odds, in a most difficult situation, the PNM has once again been called to service in the government of Trinidad and Tobago. It has not been an easy task. It has not been an easy way. But the PNM has stayed the course. And once again, we have been called to provide the people of Trinidad and Tobago with the good governance that it expects from the People's National Movement.
Speaking once again about the future of the People's National Movement, the leader Dr. Keith Rowley revealed that this might be his swan song in politics.
And what does the future hold for me personally? This, ladies and gentlemen, could easily be my last term in politics in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not one of those politicians who believe that when you come into office, you should go out feet first. I have places to go and people to see.
He, however, assured that he will leave the PNM in good hands, the hands of youthful aspirants. However, despite the transitory period on which the party will embark, Dr. Rowley assured that the nation is in good hands in the present.
In this period more than any other, let us put aside personal slights. Let us put aside personal wants and look at the national needs, especially of those persons who are least able to look after themselves. The priority of this government is to ensure that all those who call Trinidad and Tobago home, that they live here with respect and in dignity, and the people and the government will play its role.
Marie-Therese Bernard, TTT News.
In sports, COVID-19 may have stalled the sporting calendar, but the Jamaica Football Federation, JFF, says it's still working on enticing international players to join the Reggae-Boyz team. General Secretary of the Jamaica Football Federation, Dalton Wint, says his organization is aiming at Manchester United striker Mason Greenwood and Arsenal winger Ainsley Maitland-Niles to the Reggae-Boyz setup for the upcoming World Cup qualifying campaign. Greenwood and Maitland-Niles, who have both represented the England team at the junior level, is qualified to play for Jamaica because they were born to Jamaican parents. Meanwhile, the JFF recently invited Leeds United midfielder Calvin Phillips to be part of the boys' 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifying campaign. Phillips, whose father was born in Jamaica, recently helped secure a return for Leeds to English Premier League. And that's our package. Join us again tomorrow, same time, same place for more news and sports right here on PBCJ, the People's Station.